Okay, so we're going to resume the meeting. Thanks for your patience. So just to advise what's been going on during the break, there has been a meeting of minds in regards to how best we can try and move this forward, and that has resulted in the mover and seconder agreeing to replace the resolutions above with one resolution. And so that is to request the Chief Executives of Auckland Transport and Auckland Council to report back to the November Transport Resilience and Infrastructure Committee with definitive advice on solutions to issues raised by the Star Group and any associated financial impacts and the potential precedents that allows us to move forward and consider all of the risks and associated. So Ken, have you got anything to say?
Yes. I had posed to me a whole bunch of unforeseen consequences that could take place by the way in which this has happened. And so I take that on board. I want to fix things, not make them worse. And I've spelt it on all morning about working collaboratively. So that's what I want to do. But I've put in there definitive advice because we need to get timely outcomes and some answers. And I'm looking forward to within 1 month coming back to here and finishing this job. Thank you.
Thanks. And Shane?
Thank you, Chair. Just to briefly endorse it because, this morning's really highlighted the issues that desperately need urgent attention, and I thank colleagues for your contributions and all of that. I am in favour of keeping it nice and broad so we can come up with some innovative solutions because we're going to really need to get our heads together to fix this one. But keeping it broad, I think, is really appropriate in getting that advice. So thanks, Chair.
Okay. Any further commentary? The Mayor?
Okay, it's been an interesting debate. Ken, you've discovered an issue and highlighted it, and that's fair enough. And so I think something like this here where we consider it and work out what all of the impacts are is a valuable way to go for it. I think that the notice of motion as a way to run council's policies is hideously flawed. We'll be flooded with them if this is how we go about things. So I think we should acknowledge that there is an issue and we should have a considered way to find out solutions. The disaster scenario that might have occurred from that one there is that we could accidentally have set a precedent which would actually prevent any roads. Roads in New Zealand largely are made up of unretained cuts. And there is an element of risk with these. And if every road in New Zealand had to have a fully retained cuts, there would be no roads. So I'm very happy that we're going to have some thoughtful processes about this and come back with considered responses to what is clearly an issue. I'll leave it at that, really.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, yes, I agree with that principle that, if it's an Auckland Council, that Auckland Transport should be repairing Auckland Council land. Also, and so I think that point was made very clear by the presenters this morning. I thank them for that, and you clarified that through the questions and answer sessions as well, Ken. I've also heard about the bylaw, right? And that's quite clear about what is private responsibility in keeping access ways open as well. So that's all part of the equation going forward. I agree. I think with Councillor Henderson's summation there too, trying to keep it broad. So I'd just like to make a comment around if this process ends up having to go through the annual plan process, which I think we're trying to avoid that, but it may well have to go through that process. It may well have to go through both that process as well as the RLTP discussions we're going to have. It might be a combination of both. However, I didn't gain or was unable to be supplied by the officers any definite assurance that the pool of money available, even if we change that criteria, is going to be enough for Auckland as it is, and that money could well run out. So I think if we can keep it broad in terms of, because if it goes through the annual plan process and ends up that we have to borrow that money, right, I think if that does come in front of the budget committee, we need all the options there in terms of how that borrowing would be, I guess, repaid. So, you know, is that going to be a rate increase? Is it a regional targeted rate? Is it a local targeted rate? I think all those options need to be put in front of us if we have to go down that track, Ken. So I hope that if that financial paper is put together, that is included, and that would be my steer to the staff. I think that's all I have to say. So I'll be supporting this, but just making the public present today and the rest of the councillors involved in the budget committee know what would be required if we have to go down that avenue and the information that we'd need. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Desley.
Thanks. Well done, Ken. I supported your recommendations because something needed to happen. These people have waited for 20 months. They have fallen through the gap of existing policies, and they are unique in a set of circumstances that need an answer. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. The funding options are a major part of the solution for these people, but so are policy clauses and current decision-making. What we had in 2023 was unique. This council has never bought out homes before. It has to look to do things differently. We have some residents in our city that are in no man's land and they are hurting. 1 month, no longer.
Oh, no.
We need to get an answer in 1 month so these people can have some surety. They have waited 20 months. So my urging on this recommendation for me to support is to ensure that it comes with everything. We know what we're doing, and it's going to be hard for you. You've got to put case managers. It's not a, case managers on individual sites. So it's going to be a lot of work for your team, Craig, an awful lot of work. But we need to find a solution. So I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thanks, Sia. So just echo some of those sentiments. Good on you, Councillor Turner, for bringing this to us today and highlighting this issue and facing the Spanish Inquisition there. It was like ministerial question time in Parliament, so I thought you acquitted yourself very well. I think that, the first thing I would do is acknowledge a lot of the work that has occurred with slips. Anyone that sits around this table will have seen some very major jobs done and still being done, all around Auckland to fix the devastation of the January floods. But Councillor Turner has really identified a gap here, and the sentiment that came through for me was quite a simple one, and that is looking for conceivably a different way of doing things and for collaboration. Councillor Lee referred to the example where the 15 pretty big slips were done for 200k. Every community has get up and go people that will come up with a solution. We've got residents, Aucklanders, who don't muck around, and if they are enabled a bit, then things will be done, and they'll be done in a timely manner. So I certainly appreciate the efforts of Auckland Transport over the last year and a half, but that we're going into, where this will become increasingly prevalent, unfortunately, we do need to change our mindset as an organisation and to look at solutions that actually empower and enable our community, because we're not going to be able to come up with the money or the work or the detailed kind of response that has even characterised a lot of this process. So, Councillor Turner, you've highlighted that today, and hopefully that will be the kind of starter for not just this issue, but also thinking in the future on how we might best deal with things given what will become increasingly limited budgets and reoccurrence of these sorts of events. So if you're happy with the stuff in red, Councillor Turner, then I'm happy with it too.
Not happy, but accepting.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I would have been struggling to support a number of those motions. Some of them I would have supported, but the more fundamental requests for direction had really premature, they were premature directions. But this one leaves open the discussion, the investigation, the inquiry, and I think that's the good approach. What I would like, and for Craig's benefit, is I would like to see consideration of this being addressed in an equitable way, as Councillor Hills highlighted when he asked some questions. He and I are both familiar with some situations in the North Shore Ward area, from Beach Haven to Bayswater, Stanley Point, where Esplanade reserves, our assets, have given way entirely and exposed private assets. There is no support being given to those people where our asset, our land asset, Esplanade reserves, have disappeared fully or in part into the coastal marine area, with structures, without structures. And so I'd like to just make sure that we put the equity lens on this, and I sympathise entirely for the people that don't have access to their properties here, but we've got the whole of Auckland to think about as we approach this solution. The whole of Auckland, all the people of Auckland, and all the resources, the financial resources of Auckland, Auckland Council, Auckland Transport, as we think about the solution. It can't be done in a piecemeal approach.
Thank you, Chris. Daniel?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And coming back to the wording for this, it's really important. Storm damage to council road reserves. And coming back to that topic, because if we stay on that topic, that would be very helpful. But I think, look, thank you, Ken, for raising this. And I have to say that I am sorry that the support hasn't been there to sustain a number of the original recommendations in the notice of motion, because I think that they were entirely reasonable. They are very reasonable, and it's not all about funding. It is actually, a lot of this is about the process for which people who have been affected by council's inability to manage and to sustain and to achieve reinstatement of the existing road corridor want to come to the council with a solution to reinstate the road corridor, and that is not a system that we have that we're up to speed with, because we don't have our asset management planning in place. We don't have a facility in place to be able to, it appears, address the consenting requirements for the infrastructure that is, a lot of it's actually going to be delivered by those people themselves. And here we are, we've waited 20 months to arrive at a point where we realise that we don't have the network together. Well, actually, these people have a right to be frustrated, and I think that Ken is absolutely fair in raising these issues. I don't know what additional time is required with respect to some of these matters, because I actually think either there is a process for consenting for which we are just going to address these applications, or we're going to have a retrospective consenting of work that's already taken place because it addressed an emergency repair. I am sorry, Ken, that it appears that the support isn't there for your original motions, most of which I would have supported too. I would like to think that we're going to have useful information to address that, but in a month's time, we'll have to come back and do the things that what Ken is asking for, because otherwise we may as well just go and concede that the people of West Auckland are not going to be able to enjoy reasonable access to their property, which is completely unsustainable. So either they're going to get an answer in a month's time, or this council is going to be equally embarrassed in a month's time, because frankly, I thought the questions that have been raised of Ken today, some of which were fair, but I think he did face a Spanish Inquisition. He's done well for his constituents, I think, in his advocacy today, but the points that are being raised need to be addressed, and it's not all about funding. Craig Hobbs will have to address this as a matter of process too. There are consenting issues that are simply not a matter of resourcing. This is simply about accepting that there are going to be works that are going to take place in this road corridor, which if these residents are able to do so, will actually provide public benefit too, because it will ensure access, not just for those residents, but for everybody who's driving on those local roads.
Thanks. Kieran?
Oh, that was really quick. Kia ora. So I just wanted to say, look, the support is urgently needed for our city, and I acknowledge the frustration Aucklanders have been going through. I'll be supporting this today because Aucklanders need clear timeframes on getting action on these concerns. This council should change and flex with every situation we face, not say, well, within the existing policies we can't. That's where we need to create new policies and a way forward. This will give Aucklanders hope at a time when it is really needed, and it's our job to ensure we continue to give Aucklanders that hope and a way forward. We must make sure we make the changes for our communities and our future generations, not wait for the next event, but get it done now. So ngā mihi nui, I look forward to the next steps. Kia ora.
Thank you. Look.
Kia ora, and talofa chair, happy to Valu Language Week. I wanted to start by commending Councillor Turner. Thank you for bringing this to this public forum so we could have this discussion and this debate. The notice of motion, I often call it the tool of last resort for elected members. And I know on my time when I was chair of the local board, we used it very, very rarely. And usually we used it after we felt we were frustrated with the process or weren't getting the answers that we'd been asking for, questions that we'd been asking for some months. So I acknowledge you and commend you for using that tool to bring it here to have this discussion. I think where we've landed is a good place, but I probably would have supported most, if not all, of your previous motion as well, for many of the reasons that others have put forward. I do feel for the public today, and I thank you as well for having the courage to come here and raise your voices to let us know what you're going through as well. And I commend you for coming, but I also think that what we've landed on is a good place for some of the reasons like what Councillor Sayers was saying, because ultimately I think this will need more money. Personally, I think we have underfunded infrastructure, we've underfunded the resilience, the recovery. We agreed to money that we knew wasn't going to be enough to do what needed to be done for the whole of Auckland. And so I do commend you for coming today. And although you may feel disappointed, this is a good way forward because it allows our staff to come and tell us all of those options that we have to look at and face going forward. If more money is required, and I'm pretty sure more money will be, we have to consider, well, will we borrow more? Will we put the rates up a little bit? Is this part of the annual budget discussion going forward? And then we've got to put that out to the members around the table, but perhaps also to the rest of Auckland to consider as well. I want to ask you as well to continue your advocacy, not just here at local government, but at central government too. Because as you've heard today, that funding for us, that is one of our funding streams for this sort of work, but we've reached a limit with what they've given us. So I encourage you to keep advocating to your central government MPs and to the minister as well. Perhaps they'll open up their much deeper pockets so that we can do some of this work faster. And finally, Chair, I just wanted to say that I support wholeheartedly this new resolution we have before us and look forward to the discussions going forward. Kia ora.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. I probably would have supported
the resolutions as they were, I was just asking questions to make sure we knew what we were supporting and what would be investigated. This resolution does then make sure we have all that information before making any final decisions. It is about money, unfortunately. The issue here is that we don't know how far and what the money might end up to. I know that saying, why do we charge a consent, even if we're giving the grant for it, it's because our consent system is set up as a reimbursement of the cost. So the cost, I would rather us set up some sort of grant system so we would have to show in our long-term plan how that money was being, and those staff were being paid for. So everything charged through our consent and monitoring system is technically supposed to be cost recovery. And so whatever hole we leave, we need to account for it. On the other budget, I mean, we did have to fight so hard. The conversations, I think Deputy Mayor and I, tried to take down the finance minister at FIFA World Cup one night to get more funding. There were lots and lots of conversations the Mayor, Deputy and myself had with parts of government to push that barrow. The first offers that we got from government were, and I would have gone pretty publicly furious, I'll put it nicely, in what we were being offered, because we know that even the $2 billion package that we put together is not enough. Only 900 people who have, 3,500 have put themselves in the system saying, we are at the end of living here, we can't do this, and we've only funded 900. And my questions to Councillor Turner were about that whole, if we didn't do that, if a majority of us didn't support that, not $1 would have gone to our communities. The other issue is the match funding from the government for Auckland Transport, and this funding has kind of been taken away from us. Regional fuel tax. This afternoon we've got a workshop on Auckland Transport funding where we are now having to deal with an almost $1 billion hole. $561 million we thought was coming to us from the government, from Waka Kotahi. We're not going to get that. So we're already having to go, okay, we've lost another 561 million from what our LTP approved. We're going to have to figure out that. So it all does add up, and we just need to make sure that we have all the advice to make sure that we are doing the right thing by the people who've had their homes and communities devastated, but also making sure we do the right thing for everyone who's going to have to pay this. And on the shore and the communities, I've stood on the edge of cliffs and in the valleys and in the places where people have lost half their garden or underneath of their deck, or their driveways completely washed out. There's plenty of valleys and waterways throughout the North Shore where the bridges that people get into their homes over culverts have been completely washed out, and most of those people have been politely or not politely or legally written letters from council telling them they're responsible for that. So I guess my question is, how wide does this stretch, and what advice and help do we give for those people along the way? So it is complex, but I know that everyone has a right to ask for help, and we should do all we can to do that. Kia ora.
Finally, Josephine.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I already said I would have supported your original notice of motion, but I'll support this because you both agree to this change. Yeah, thank you for raising it here. I just want to say to the residents from your area, really sorry that you've had to come here and raise it at this forum, and for what you're going through. Yeah, just really sorry. And we shouldn't, I don't agree with saying to you guys, go to the government. It's council-owned land. You've come to the right place. We should figure it out. And you shouldn't be asking for answers. You should be asking for solutions, because you'll get definitive answers which actually may not solve the situation. So that's my thought, and I really hope this gets resolved. And yeah, again, very sorry that you've had to go through everything you've gone through, and that you had to come to this transport committee. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, honey. Thanks, Joe. Honey.
Thanks, the end. I just want to make a statement more so, and to yourself, Keen, for placing this up, but more so to the rōpū, the haukainga that came forward and placed the take. And it's the passion and the drive. that I've heard. And I would have supported the motions that you had placed up, Ken. But more so, I will support this space, but it's the drive and the passion of the whole kāinga that came through really strong. And I reflect, for us at the Riti tangata, it's a hard drive to keep pushing criteria to fit spaces that a lot of us can't see. So just want to just acknowledge that, Ken, your work. Tēnā tātou.
Thank you, honey. Okay. I'm not selective. Okay, so
One more question. Can we change that word? No? Well, solutions is a really good word that no one came up with in our discussion. Could we change that to solutions?
So
Definitive solutions, sorry. Advice, yeah, take away the advice on, just definitive solutions.
no, because you need to have a voice.
All
Okay.
right.
So we have had, yeah, we are very nearly there. So we've had a very, very good and long discussion on this. I'm not going to lengthen it. I'll put the motion. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And against? Carried. Thank you to the residents who came. Thank you to the staff who worked so hard to put up the notice of motion and who sat here. Thank you. Tricky, complex issue. We are now going to move on to the next item on the agenda. So the next item is